Thank you everybody for joining us today for our webinar. We have Phil Lanctot with us. He's with Advanced Capital Network. He's going to take us through the CARES Act. We ask that you keep your lines muted through the entire presentation, and we'll be doing the chat feature on the right. You'll just need to initiate that for all questions, and Phil will be available to answer them at the end of the presentation. Phil, I turn it over to you. Let's get started.
Good morning. My name's Phil Lanctot from Advanced Capital Network. We're commercial finance consultants that specialize in SBA loans. Today, I was going to provide an overview of the two SBA loan relief programs. SBA stands for Small Business Administration, for those that aren't familiar with that. So, we're going to start with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, also referred to as EIDL. So the eligibility for these loans, basically businesses with less than 500 employees. This could be a small business, sole proprietors, independent contractors. In this case, it's also available to nonprofit organizations. Businesses with more than 500 employees may be eligible in certain cases. To get the sizing standards from the SBA, go to sba.gov/size standards to see whether or not you are eligible if you are over 500 employees. Go to the next slide. Okay. Economic Injury Disaster Loan. These are loans that are up to $2 million for working capital. Rates are 3.75 for for-profits. They're a little lower for nonprofits. Terms are up to 30 years. Basically, in terms of calculating loan amounts for this program, it's usually about 3 to 4 months total operating expenses. And this has been available for a few weeks now. With the new CARES Act, they've made some modifications to it. There is now a $10,000 emergency grant, which can be requested after you submit your application. This is supposed to be paid out about 36 hours from the request. This does not have to be paid back, even if you decide or are not approved for economic injury disaster loan. They are now approving applications solely on credit score. They're not looking at tax returns or other income. The other thing that they've added is they've removed the personal guarantee for loans that are under $200,000. They've waived the 1 year in business requirement. Prior to this, you would have had to be in business for a year to apply for this type of loan. I'm going to come back to this later at the end. So I'm going to move forward to the Paycheck Protection Program, which is a 7A, an SBA 7A loan. So who is eligible? This is very similar. Eligibility is similar to the EIDL program, except there's one major exception. That is for the hospitality and restaurant industry. They waived the affiliation for these entities. Now, this means is now any entity with fewer than 500 employees at each location, those locations can apply for this loan. Typically, they would combine all of the employees or affiliates with franchises and things like that. This is the one major difference between the Paycheck Protection Program loans and EIDL loans. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, the high level, the terms for a paycheck protection loan are going to be the interest rate will not be higher than 4%. The repayment term is 10 years. These loans, one of the main features of these loans is that they are eligible for forgiveness, and payments may be deferred from anywhere from 6 to 12 months. We've also waived some other requirements, one being no credit elsewhere. There are no personal guarantees required. No personal guarantees required as long as the funds are used as they're supposed to be. There's no collateral required for these loans. Now, maximum loan amount for a Paycheck Protection Program loan is going to be 2.5 times the average total monthly payroll cost, up to $10 million. Now, they're going to calculate this using prior 12 months prior to taking the loan. Now, if you're in a seasonal business, you're going to utilize a 3-month period for this. It would be April through June 30th. Now, the term payroll cost is pretty broadly defined at this point. It can include salaries, wages, cash tip or equivalent. Not really sure how that's going to be calculated. There's going to be payments for different types of leave, vacation, family, medical, sick leave. There's an allowance for dismissal or separation, which is a little unusual because the intent of the program is to retain employees during this time. It includes group health care benefits, insurance payments, as well as retirement benefits. Now, the one caveat to this is that it excludes payroll amounts for individuals in excess of $100,000. My interpretation on this is going to be that if you make $125,000, you're only going to be counted as $100,000 towards the calculation maximum loan amount. Now, the use of proceeds, or what these loans can be used for, you can use them for payroll costs, mortgage interest or rent, utilities, and interest on other debt. Now, you also could use it to, you may also be able to use it for a loan that you've obtained after January 1st, before February 15th. Still waiting for guidance on that. Now, this is the most attractive feature of this particular loan, which is if you use for the funds, the approved use of funds, whatever you spend on those during the 8-week period after closing on the loan are eligible for forgiveness. What's going to happen is you're going to get the loan as long as you use the funds on those intended uses, you're eligible for forgiveness. So effectively, you use the loans for what they're supposed to be. This effectively becomes a grant. Now, this is a big difference between the economic injury disaster loan, paycheck protection loan, that these loans are going to be provided through SBA lending partners. These would be banks and other SBA authorized lenders. Now, right now, the banks and these lenders are waiting for rules and regulations from the SBA. So we don't know exactly what type of documentation is going to be required for this program. And what we're doing is we've been advising clients and borrowers to start collecting documents such as 3 years of business and personal tax returns, as well as corporate documents like certificate of organization, articles of incorporation, the operating agreement, EIN letters, the application The application and required documentation, like I said, has not been provided to banks yet. Now, one of the big differences, and I don't know if anybody has applied for an economic disaster loan, but when they were announced, they were basically the demand was so high, staffing was inadequate. A lot of people have had a hard time completing the application. In fact, I have not really spoken with anyone that has successfully gotten one of those loans at this point. So using the existing SBA lending structure is going to provide much faster way getting these loans out, because the SBA typically there's about 30 billion SBA loans in a given year. In this case, there's $350 billion been allotted for these loans. They're going to be distributing these in a fraction of the time. So that's why they're going to utilize the existing banks and SBA lenders to deploy this. It should address a lot of the problems that have existed with the disaster loan. So now, I wanted to do a quick comparison between the payroll protection program and the economic injury disaster loan. So the rates are comparable. It's going to be 4% for the we'll call it the PPP loan versus 3.75 for for-profit businesses. Now the maximum, there's a big difference here. The maximum for 7A has been increased from 5 million to 10 million, and the disaster loans max out at about 2 million. The repayment term for the PPP is up to 10 years. That would be for the balance that's not forgiven, whereas terms go up to 30 years for the disaster loans. The forgiveness is only available through the payroll protection program, paycheck protection. And a $10,000 emergency grant, if you've applied for the disaster loan and you receive the grant, that amount would be reduced from the loan forgiveness amount that you would get with the PPP program. Now, the big difference is, like I was talking about, in terms of how these funds are going to be distributed, is that a realistic time to fund a 7A program in receipt of a complete application is going to be about 2 to 3 weeks, where the realistic time to fund economic injury disaster loan is really uncertain. It could be 3 weeks to get an approval or an answer, and another couple weeks to get funding. I know, again, a lot of people have had a hard time getting through to that program. An unprecedented demand, and SBA is limited in staffing. The other thing to keep in mind, again, is like $350 billion was approved for the Paycheck Protection Program, whereas only $17 billion to date has been allocated towards the economic injury disaster loan. That's a quick comparison between the two. So that's a quick overview. I kind of raced through that, and we can move over to questions now. I have a few questions. One is how will we know if the loan forgiveness has been granted on the loan? Okay, well, in that case, you're going to be able to apply. You'll be able to apply for loan forgiveness after June 30th. I think it's going to take about 30 to 60 days in order to get your answer. And we're not sure of what kind of documentation is going to be required for that. Probably going to have to submit payroll reports, copies of rent payments, mortgage payments, interest payments on other debt in order to get that. You should have an answer within 30 to 60 days. Now, we anticipate that the underwriting guidelines that they're going to be doing this very quickly and streamlining all these processes. You're going to know whether you get the forgiveness probably within 6 months, probably within the time period that the payments are deferred. When in actuality, you may never have to. Most people, if you're forgiven 100% of your loan, you won't be paying anything. Loan forgiveness guaranteed. I believe it is, as long as you use the funding for, as long as you use the loan proceeds for what you're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be used, you'll get reimbursed for that. You will get loan forgiveness. Is the $10,000 grant available without applying for the EIDL? No, I do not believe that it is.
There were a few questions up above that too about 501c6 organizations and what's available.
I was wondering if Maria could jump in and help me out with that. I did not see that on the list of eligible entities.
Hi, it's Melissa.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I've been Marie. I've been Michelle. I've had a lot of new names over the last few weeks. There is for 501c6s on the call. There is a webinar at 3 p.m. specifically to delve into that. Our understanding is that 501c6s are eligible for the EIDL program. And they can apply for the EIDL program, which includes that $10,000 grant. 501c6s are not eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. That is 501c3s and veterans organizations. So you could only apply, as of right now, our understanding is that you're only eligible for that EIDL program, which is the low interest loan. And another item, Phil, you might have mentioned it, is you can't apply for the PPP and an EIDL. So for many of our restaurants and hotels, you're eligible for both. You don't get to double dip. You would pick one that is best suited for your needs. Obviously, the PPP is a shorter term, but forgiven. And the EIDL is more funds, but not forgiven. But you do not get to choose both. You would have to pick one or the other under this law.
Right. My understanding is that you can, a lot of people have applied for both, but you can only accept one. Technically, it's not practical, but if you've applied and received funding from an EIDL, an economic disaster loan, you can refinance that with a PPP. Now, I don't know how practical that's going to be because I think the loan amounts for the EIDL are going to be higher than they would be for the PPP. But other than that, it's not practical. Usually, you are correct. People are going to apply for one or the other. Now, if you do, the reason, like I said earlier, if you applied for an EIDL, got the $10,000 grant, you can still apply for the PPP. However, that $10,000 grant will be deducted from the loan forgiveness for the payroll protection program, paycheck protection program. Okay, is the loan forgiveness 100% if used for the categories, or is the calculation based on any other criteria? Yes, there is the criteria. We had the $100,000 caveat that I talked about earlier. There is also a requirement that you have to retain the same, you have to have the same number of employees um, at, when you apply for the, by June 30th, you had prior to February 15th. Or payroll has to, and the payroll has to be 75% of what it was in the prior period last year. Now you are able to bring back employees that have already been laid off, qualify for this program. Don't know, that's my understanding of it, but you will have to hire people back and you will have to maintain at least 75% of their compensation.
I saw at the top, Phil, is there an address for the payroll protection program? Address, I'm not sure what they, do you mean like maybe a URL where they're supposed to be going to look at? I'm not sure what they mean by that.
No, I don't. There's a brief mention of it on the SBA website today, but that information, they're basically directing anyone to talk to their local, talk to their bank, more information about the program.
And to piggyback off of that, somebody asked if they're applying to an SBA lender or if your current lender is that, do you have to apply with them?
No, you don't. You can apply with any authorized SBA lender.
And is the application, the EIDL application online? Somebody was asking about that too.
Yeah, the EIDL application is online. My understanding is they just simplified it and they put a new application up this morning or last night. With that program,
And that's on the SBA side?
Yes, you would go to sba.gov and follow the prompts for economic injury disaster loans. And I believe the process, they've changed that after they had a lot of issues with their servers. It crashed a lot. Right now, basically you download that application and you'll upload it. And then you'll provide additional documentation when it's requested.
Got it. I guess there was a question about EEIG 10,000, maybe advance with 3-day turnaround, which is part of the EIDL, but being told that it may take 2 to 3 weeks to even talk to a loan officer.
Yeah, that's
just asking for advice what to do.
Yeah, the whole process with the EIDL program has been, I hate to say the disaster relief has been a disaster, but in that case it has. I mean, people aren't getting answers. I've heard, I have almost, I'd say 80% of the people that have called me to talk about PPP program have applied for the EIDL program and have heard nothing. So that is the caveat. I mean, yes, you can get a disaster, you can get the emergency grant in 36 hours, but you'll have to make contact with an SBA, caseworker in order to make that request. That could take a little while.
I think you had gone over this, but the PPP is a payroll cost, benefits, rent, interest, but not cost of sales, materials, like what it covers. And I think that was one of the slides you went over. So it covers the payroll, benefits, rent, but they can't use it for material sales and supplies and overhead. That's the question.
Question is, in terms of what you can use it for, my interpretation of that is that you can only get forgiveness for funds that are used for payroll expenses, rent, or mortgage interest, interest on other loans and utilities. So if you don't use the funds for those items, you wouldn't be eligible for forgiveness for funds that are spent for other uses. But you'd be basically getting a 4% loan for 10 years, which which isn't so bad. So, I expect that businesses will be using these funds for other uses. Basically, just accepting that it's a.
Phil, this is Melissa. I think something that, and you and I talked about this a little bit last week. You're right. You can use these funds, these PPP funds, for anything, but you'll only be forgiven on using it, as Phil said, for payroll, utilities, mortgage interest, rent. But you can use it for anything. But with that being said, the maximum amount under the PPP is 2.5 times 8 weeks of payroll. So it's not as large of a loan at the end of the day as you might need, depending on how long this pandemic continues. So that's why it's important that if, in terms of the PPP, looking at some of those state funds and other options, if you need the extra funding, it's probably worth investigating sooner than later, because you are capped at 2.5 times on the PPP.
That is correct. And then you were also, I also saw a question, can you apply for a PEIDC loan as well as the PPP? And that's a state program. The answer to that would be yes. You can apply for both. I have a couple people I'm working with that are doing that.
Somebody was asking about how to calculate the payroll forgiveness. Is it based on headcount or percentage of gross payroll?
It's based on both. Based on both. They're basically going to use headcount. Then it's going to be 75% of the payroll from the prior, period over period, and they'll reduce the forgiveness proportionally to what's below that. That's my understanding of it. We're still, some of this, I've read the bill and I've gone out and I've read a lot of articles, interpretations of this. I've been talking with lenders, and at the end of the day, from the lender side, the message that I'm getting is we'll have more specifics when the SBA provides us with the rules and guidelines. So, but it's going to be a combination of headcount and payroll amount.
Oh, I'm going down here.
We pay rents.
Are you there?
That's a good, yes. Should we pay rent and loans now or wait? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I know that they're using the 8 weeks prior to that. A lot of people have asked lenders and landlords for deferrals on rent. So if you're able to get them, then that would probably be the case that you would want, that you can wait. There is going to be a provision where you're able to refinance existing debt, which may be loans that are taken out after January 1st. If you were to borrow money to pay your rent loans, that may be something you can refinance. But again, we're going to be kind of high, we're going to be maxed out at 2.5 times payroll costs in terms of maximum loan amount.
Do we know if there's a minimum amount you have to apply for as part of the EIDL program?
I don't believe there's a minimum.
So could you technically game the system and apply for a $2,000 loan in order to get the $10,000 in free money?
I don't know, but I think you can. I think you would apply. The 10,000 is basically a grant.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's really no downside in applying for it. The only issue is I don't believe you can apply for the EIDL after you accepted PPP loan. So a lot of times, practically, what people are going to be doing is they're going to be getting they would end up, most people that apply for these loans, particularly the PPP, are going to get funded before they even hear back from a representative for the EIDL loan.
There's one about new owners, less than a year, with no employees. I guess if they're applying the payroll, how would that, I guess, just advice on that.
Well, if you're
They should be doing.
if you're a sole proprietor or an independent contractor, you do qualify for the PPP loan. And they have waived, with that, the waiver in terms of having to be in business for a year has been waived as well. So the answer is probably yes to that.
One a little higher, someone asked if they've been putting personal funds in to sustain their business during this time to cover payroll, rent. How does this factor into the PPP loan forgiveness?
Personal funds in the EIDL, I believe that is something that can be refinanced under the EIDL program. And as far as the PPP, I think it keeps coming back. I keep going back to, you're calculating that maximum loan amount. You consider that you lent money and you're making payroll. You're going to be capped at that. It's 8 weeks. That's 2 months. You're going to have half a month after that. You can get those funds back, but I don't know on the PPP whether or not they would be eligible for loan forgiveness. But I would think your rent, your payroll, your interest on other loans, and all those things would cap you out at the 2.5%, 2.5 times total payroll.
Is the application available, the PPP application?
No, there
Or
is
is
not.
that's
There's not an application available yet. I've been talking with lenders about this. They expect the SBA will probably come out with a new streamlined application for this program. We should have that. We should know more about that for the next couple days.
the one under there is interesting about the PPP loan and hiring employees back when there's no work and getting pushed back, that they can get more through unemployment than coming back to work.
Yes.
I guess any advice there?
Well, that's probably true. That's kind of a question that I had. This program has gone through a couple iterations. I was reading the bill. When I was reading the bill that was proposed on March 19th, the loan amount was going to cover a lot more. And then when I read the final bill, 26th, I had the same question that you did. I think the answer to that is that there's an expectation that you're probably not going to be hiring everyone back. Certain industries, it just doesn't make sense. So that's probably why they're allowing some of the funds that are counted towards forgiveness to include rent payments, mortgage interest, utilities, and things like that. So even if your payroll is a little bit less than it was before, you have other areas where you can make that up. That's a very good question. I'm scrolling through these. Let me see. Not the sales of, not that one.
Someone had asked about seasonal businesses, how they could be using these funds towards that.
Well, The seasonal business, I know that the calculations are going to be based, somebody that's applying as a seasonal business would probably be seasonal business. Their payroll, total payroll costs are going to be based on a 3-year period, I guess would be their peak season. And the same thing would apply. They can use those funds towards either the uses that are eligible for the loan forgiveness or something else, just become a loan. Not really sure exactly. I'd like to get some clarification on that question.
Okay, that'd be great.
It's Melissa. Could you re-clarify for everybody on the call, if they're going through for a PPP, that would go through their lender. So that would go through their bank, their SBA approved bank. And then for the EIDL, is that still running through the SBA, or will that also run through the banking system?
The EIDL is, my understanding is that the EIDL will continue. That's going to be a direct loan from the SBA.
Okay.
PPP would be through any authorized SBA lender. Now, I think it's going to take time. Some are going to be up faster than others. So my advice would be, you want to find, some have been preparing for this for weeks, and they're going to be ready to roll as soon as these regs are out. So if you contact your bank and they're not ready to go, it's worth picking up the phone and contacting other lenders. But you would reach out to your bank and other banks, or you can email me. I'd be glad to refer you to a lender, or I can also answer questions via email about that.
There was a question about management companies getting compensated for, because some positions are paid through the management company versus the property.
Management company? Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder what they mean by management company.
There could be an overarching company that represents multiple businesses.
No, I believe if as long as, I think the individual business would have to apply for them.
Phil, I want to fill in real quick for everybody on the call, because I think it's probably important to clarify this. This legislation passed Friday. So I know that everybody has so many questions, and quite honestly, there's a lot of questions that we don't know the answer to yet, because we need the SBA to develop regulations and we need the banks to set up their system. So there's a lot of you are asking questions that Phil or I might not know the answer to yet, because they don't have the answers yet. So I don't want anyone to feel like they need to apply today for these loans, because none of these funds are available right now. And even on the EIDL, while you can apply, they still need some time to ramp that up. And for those of you who have already replied, you haven't even gotten funds yet. So this is kind of, I would say, the first of a series of webinars where we're going to do much more deep dives moving forward. But a lot of it is we just don't have the information yet, because the president signed this on Friday afternoon. So I know everyone wants the answers, and we will get you all of the answers. We commit to that. But we just probably, for some of them, need a little bit more time to get the answers, because the feds don't even know them yet.
Yes, the banks, even I've been talking with quite a few lenders. They've been, I guess, hesitant to provide some real specific answers until they see the regulations. Because I don't want to get too far behind the scenes in this, but what happens is banks, for an SBA loans, like the SBA 7A loan, the bank is lending their own money. That is being guaranteed by the SBA or the government. And when they guarantee the money, in this case, the government is guaranteeing 100% of the loan to the banks, which means they lend their own money. borrower doesn't pay, defaults on the loan, the government will reimburse the bank. What the banks are waiting for are regulations in terms of how they're going to underwrite these loans. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions about, from businesses that are either A, showing losses in the past as to whether or not banks are going to be looking at that. That's going to be dependent upon these regulations. So there is a lot that we don't know right now. But we do know 2.5 times the total payroll. We know what the funds can be used for. Some ambiguity in terms of what's considered payroll costs, particularly when they get into things like tips and other uses. But my expectation, a couple of the lenders have told me that they expect to have these regulations within a few days. And I'm working with a few lenders that have been accepting requests for loans. They don't have the apps, but you can get into the queue. So, I think US Bank, you go to their website, there is a form that you can fill out to kind of get you in the queue. Be contacted as soon as they're ready to roll these out. There's another lender that I'm working with that is accepting these. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get ready to get these funds out within a few weeks, these regulations being announced. The ICD.
Just to pick up on some of them, I mean, we were right around what happens if we exhaust the 8 weeks of funding and we still cannot open and we have to furlough employees again. I guess advice on that. I mean, would they apply again for more money, or would how does that all work?
Well, there may be another phase to the stimulus package. I mean, I was a little surprised that it came out as only 2.5 times the average monthly, because if you're looking at this now, we're on lockdown to at least April 30th. There was another question about should you bring people back even if you're not open. That's a decision that you have to make. I mean, it may be if they can't work, the best thing you might want. I guess the answer to that is if you need funds for other uses, you just use this as it's a loan, just like the EIDL would be. The EIDL doesn't have a forgiveness provision. So you can apply for the PPP and use those funds for other things, just knowing that you're not going to get their forgiveness.
Sean was asking that he had applied for a disaster SBA loan. He's not heard back as of yet. And should he apply for some of these newer programs as discussed?
Yes, I would apply for the PPP. Any business that's in need of funding. I'm not sure with the PIDC how quickly they're going to be turning those around. I believe those were just announced last week. But I would definitely apply for the PPP, because I really can't. Really hard to tell when people are actually going to get an answer on the EIDL loans. I'll have a better feel for that over the next couple of weeks when I start getting feedback from people. But I would not. I've been advising people not to rely on the EIDL. I think the PPP is something that you're going to get. You're going to be able to talk to live people. You're going to get updates, and you're probably going to get funded in 2 to 3 weeks. Now, there's also good possibility when this gets rolled out. SBA Express program has been funding. The amounts for that have been increased from $350,000 to $1 million. So with the PPP, it's possible as soon as these regs come out, you'll be able to walk into a bank or a bank that offers SBA Express loans, probably get funded within a day or two.
There's a question that, can you choose the 8-week period and when is the latest to apply?
The 8-week period, the way it's defined is it's the 8 weeks following receipt of the loan. So it'll be 8 weeks from whenever you receive your loan.
Let's see. Can you get the grant without accepting a loan? This is what I understand.
Yes.
Okay, and I think you answered this one. Wouldn't the amount of the grant be subtracted from the EIDL amount? Or was it the EIDL amount would be subtracted from the PPP, you said, I believe?
Yes, the $10,000 would be the $10,000 would be deducted from the PPP proceeds for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Would be deducted, yes. A copy of the presentation be sent. If so,
Yes, it will. The loan forgiveness part of the PPP is for you to get your employees off of unemployment. Oh, Melissa wrote that, sorry. If I have 3 businesses, all separate entities, do I send 1 application or 3 applications?
I believe you'd have to do 1 for each entity. And Melissa's right. The intent is to keep people on the payroll. So, I think when you get into that, it's a matter of, when if you were to lay somebody off, and you want them back. I mean, I guess when you're laying somebody off, you risk losing them. So one of the advantages to using this program to keep your paid and off unemployment is you're going to be able to retain quality employees versus rolling the dice and hoping that they come back, business picks up.
There were some questions on how the loan is calculated for sole proprietors. Are you eligible if you don't have paid employees?
You are. It's going to be based on your net income. It does not exceed $100,000. If you're whatever you're reporting on your Schedule C as income would be considered your payroll, as long as it doesn't go over $100,000.
On timing, if we wait until June 15th or later to rehire to meet headcount and 75% of payroll requirement in order to extend cash in the case of a crisis extends. So saying if they wait until the June 15th date to rehire staff.
I believe you can wait and rehire. I would think businesses that are shut down, that's pretty much how it's going to work.
This is Melissa. I think I mentioned this earlier in the comments. It is not an expectation. Let's say you have 10 employees, you get the loan, that on day 1 you hire back all 10 employees. Now this will get clarified in the regs, but it is built into the law, the recognition that over the 8-week period of the loan, that you will need time to bring back employees. And it's based on your full-time employees. That's important as well, kind of the loan forgiveness portion. So you can't bring back all your full-timers as part-timers for the loan forgiveness, at least not to maximize the loan forgiveness. But there is build-up from day 1 of the loan to the end of the loan that allows you some wiggle room, and that should be built out in the regs as we receive them this week in terms of loan forgiveness.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That was a good question. I just saw. I think we talked about this at the beginning. That the 1099 employees, is my business eligible for PPP loan if the only employees that they have are all 1099? I think we're saying that.
That's a good question. We're still waiting on, lenders are waiting. I'm waiting to hear from lenders in terms of the regulations on that. It doesn't specifically say that. There's a part of the legislation that is a little vague. I think the guy from, there was an article in Forbes. There's a couple articles that did interpret it as 1099 employees, that being eligible. But you need to get confirmation on that.
Okay.
I certainly hope that's the
So we
case.
did get,
I have a lot of a lot of businesses that are in that situation. Fingers are crossed that 1099.
we did get the slide back up. Any work being done to include DMOs in the PPP loans? Melissa, do you know anything about that?
The bill has passed. I don't know, and I might have mentioned this before. I don't believe that the SBA will have the authority to extend it to 501c6s, at least not in the legislation as we see it. I think we are planning, like I said, U.S. travel. Each national organization has kind of like worked on this, and the NRA has been working on the 501c6s, the National Restaurant Association, the 501c6s, in addition to businesses, as is AHLA. But U.S. travel has really kind of been trying to figure out the caveat on the tourism end for destination marketing organizations. So we will know for sure at the 3:00 webinar this afternoon. As I said, from what research and information we've been able to collect, I don't know if it's attainable now in a COVID, we call them COVID 4, which would be the next COVID package. Could that be an amendment and a change? Yes, and I think that's something on our list to ask for in the next package. But my understanding is that 501c6s will not be recognized under the PPP in its current form, but we will hopefully get full clarification on that this afternoon. And if they are not, we will work for that, in a package 4 moving forward.
Thank you.
There was a question which this is similar to some of the other ones that we've gotten in terms of restaurant and breweries where majority of the staff is kitchen and tipped employees. They're not functioning aspects of the business right now. I think that'd be pretty, in terms of the loan amount, that's going to be based on what's been done historically. From what I've read, part of the forgiveness in this case would be compensation above tips. So not 100% sure, but you would get those tips, and that comp would count towards the total loan amount. In terms of the loan forgiveness, it's a little unclear right now as to how they're going to handle it.
I think you answered this, but maybe you could just repeat it. Somebody was asking about applying for the SBA 7A loan, also receiving a small business debt relief in addition to PPP loans. I think you had discussed applying for them all, but are they eligible for them all? Because I think you had talked about that a little bit before.
Are they?
Or do they have to pick one or the other? They have to pick one or the other.
Well, they have to pick. You have to pick the. If you take a PPP loan, you wouldn't be able to take the other one. But if you've already applied and taken the other one, you can use a PPP loan to refinance that. But it's a tough answer.
This is Melissa. I want to remind everybody again, on the federal front, it's either the PPP or the EIDL. Don't get both. Now you can, as Phil said, you can apply for both and then you can figure out which one you want. The PPP is going to get funded faster, but that's also why we have those state disaster loans for people with 100 employees or less that can get up to $100,000 that they can pay off over 3 years. The city of Philadelphia has some grants and some loans in place. So while on the federal one, you have to pick one or the other, those federal loans don't impact your ability to apply for any of the state or local loans or grants that are available to you.
That is correct.
going down, yes, the slides will be available after the call. We do have a recording, basic information to gather. Phil had indicated that on one of the slides, but also Louis Caputo put something in there too. Another question, Phil, is my business is closed, putting personal money in. Will this be covered in the grant or forgiveness of the loan? I think you covered that a little earlier today in the call.
As long as they're going to, I would assume they're going to reopen it.
Mm-hmm.
Order it would have to be running to get the grant. We're going to
The
wait
next
and see what
question is a
happens.
business.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. No, you can finish your statement. I'm sorry.
I actually forgot what my statement was going to be, so go ahead with the question.
Okay, sorry. Next question was just that the business is in the development stage, so they don't really have any net income and don't have any paid employees. Would they still be eligible for the funds?
Not if you have to have payroll for the PPP. For the EIDL, I guess it's just you would have to have operating expense of some sort. But EIDL is open to startups.
Okay.
So what I was going to suggest is I've got a lot of people, there could be I'd be glad to send out an update or provide an update as soon as these regulations come in to some of these questions. That's going to be critical.
Sure, and like as Melissa said, we will be having follow-up webinars to this. I don't know if you want to look at the last three questions and see if any of those you want to, if you're able to respond to those. So qualifications for FTE, full-time employment, I believe.
That is, I do know that full-time equivalent is 30 hours. So it's the same as the Affordable Care Act. So that is correct. 30 hours does fill the full-time equivalent requirement.
We only have part-time employees. Are we still eligible for the PPP? I don't know that. I think that's going to come down to total payroll costs and what they're referring to as other or similar type compensation. Probably be the same thing as like 1099s. Again, that's another one where we've got to see the regular.
I can fill in at least on the tipped employees. It's going to be, there is a provision that allows for the makeup for tipped employees. So you can look at their average take-home pay, similar to what unemployment would be. So there is a provision in the bill under the PPP that allows that the tipped employee wage, inclusive of tips, to be part of the calculation for the payroll.
We will have all these questions. We're making a copy of this, and we will look at the questions we haven't answered and are putting these up onto an FAQ on our website. So we will try to cover the questions if there were ones on here that we didn't get to. And hopefully we'll have some regulations too to add into some of the questions that were asked where we didn't have the, all the information that we would be able to provide an answer. Phil, I really appreciate you taking time to come and present this information, at least like the beginning stages of where we're at. Eric, I don't know if you want to put his contact information up again, if anybody is interested to reach out to Phil. We will be making this presentation available, again, putting the frequently asked questions up online. And then we still always have the submit your questions on our website, so you can submit questions to us and we take a look at those on a daily basis and respond accordingly. Phil, again, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's joined us. We will, again, make this available to you by the end of the day today. We do need to put the recording together with the presentation so that you can review this at a later time. And I think that concludes this for today. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate your time. And everybody that's joined us today, I appreciate it. Thanks, Melissa and John and Eric, too.